How's it going, guys? It's been a week since I've talked to you, and sorry about that, but I was in the hospital for a couple of days with pancreatitis. Everything's going good with that, so with that being stated, let's dive on into something. I'm just going to talk off the top of my head today. I don't got any topic in mind other than life in and of itself and the way that I've been seeing things lately. And I've just been noticing, like, a lot of changes from when I was younger, like stuff that I personally can't explain. And let me just start off with saying I believe in the Mandela effect, obviously. In my opinion, there's no way to deny it. Certain things are changing for certain people, and there's no way around that. Like, people want to say it's coincidence that hundreds of thousands of people are misremembering the same thing. Like, let's take the Luke, I am your father line in Star Wars. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that there was actually a figurine that was trademarked by LucasArts that has a verbal toy. You push a button and Darth Vader speaks and he says, "Luke, I am your father." And it's in the original voice of the guy that did the line. And what's funny is that guy, he was also in Field of Dreams, which is funny because if you want to get technical, there's another Mandela effect with Field of Dreams. It seems like he's involved in quite a few of them. I can't remember his name. Terrence McKenna isn't his name. It's an author that was used in Field of Dreams. Anyhow, but there's a toy that was licensed by LucasArts that has Darth Vader saying, "Luke, I am your father." And everybody that watches the movie now will realize it says, "No, I am your father," which doesn't make any fucking sense at all. But no way the entire world's going to remember it one way when in fact the movie doesn't have that dialogue in it. And why does the actor recall to this day the "Luke, I am your father" line, like to the point where he's done quite a few interviews where he mentions it? So the Mandela effect is something I definitely believe in, but like, just look at the changes in the human body. Does anybody remember learning in biology about a floating rib? How human beings, the bottom rib in our bodies, it was attached to the rib cage at the back, but not the front. So it was just like a floating rib. I remember being taught this, and that only one of the sexes had it, and I can't recall if it was male or female, but I believe it was males that had it, it was females that had it and males that didn't, because I remember tying that back to God took a rib from Adam to make Eve, therefore, men had one less rib than women. Anyhow, it doesn't matter anymore because the floating rib doesn't exist. Now, how many of you guys remember the human skull when you were in school? Do you guys recall seeing bone behind the socket of the eye? In other words, like a semicircle, a semisphere, half a sphere with the eye, and there's a bone behind it. How many of you remember that? I don't. I remember it being hollow. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching a video and I see a skull and I pause the video, and it's not even Mandela effect related, but I'm like, this doesn't fucking look right. So I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with this skull, and after about 2 minutes of thinking, it hits me. I was like, there's no bones behind the eye socket. So I'm thinking this is a fake human skull. So I start doing a bunch of research, right? Nope, turns out that every human skull ever found, unless it's been broken obviously, has bones behind the eye socket. Now this just blew my mind, so I started doing more research, and there's a bunch of stuff that doesn't add up in the human body. Like, look at our liver now. Our liver is in two parts. We have a two-lobed liver. I don't ever recall that being the case. I recall us having one liver and it being rather small. Now if you look at our liver, it's fucking huge. And the same thing can be said about our heart. And on top of that, now people are saying that our heart has neural activity as well. Not just our brain, but our heart has neural pathways. And it's no longer on the left side of our body. Like, when you do the Pledge of Allegiance, where do you put your hand? You put your hand over your heart. Well, why do you put your hand on the left side of your body? if your heart's actually in the center of your chest cavity, right underneath your sternum. Now, if you think about it from an engineering point, and if you were making upgrades on the body, it would make sense to move the heart over to make it larger and give it more protection underneath the sternum because it's a more solid bone. It's harder to stab through the sternum. When it's on the left side of your body, you stand the chance of putting a knife blade through ribs, right? If you get lucky enough, you can go right between ribs and stab the heart. However, if you want to stab the heart, if it's under the sternum, you have to go through the sternum to do it. And it just makes more sense from an engineering standpoint if I'm looking at it, right? And I'm going to upgrade the human body, that would be a logical step. It would really be a logical step to me. The stomachs move places from where I remember it. There's just a bunch of stuff that's different. Another thing that I've noticed is like the UV index is through the fucking roof. Now, I used to do construction and I could stay outside, sun up, sun down, work my ass off all day. Now it'd be hot and I'd be drinking 2-3 gallons of water a day, pissing like a fucking racehorse, right? But I could withstand the heat, like I wouldn't get burned, I would have a nice tan all summer long, and like I could manage it. Nowadays, if I try to go out and do that in the sun, not only does the sun seem like it's hotter, right? I've seen videos where they measure the UV, and the UV is through the roof. Not only that, but does the sun look like it's white to you guys? I don't know if it's just me, because I've lived in different regions of the country, so I don't know if, like, in North Carolina, the sun would look yellow. I don't know if that's the case, but I've lived in Detroit, too, which is a higher elevation, not higher elevation, but higher in longitude than, or latitude than where I live now in Massachusetts. But in Massachusetts now, like, which is where I've spent the majority of the time that I've lived, right, it seems like the sun is hotter, the UV is definitely higher, and it seems white. It just looks white. It doesn't look yellow. It doesn't. Like, there's no way around it. I don't know how to explain it. Something noticeably has changed. And like I've also noticed, I do a paper route, so I'm up a lot more during this time of day. But like, I used to party all the time when I was younger, and I used to pay attention to the stars. I used to be up at 3 in the morning. But now, like, I see Mercury or Venus in the sky, like so close that I can reach out and touch it. And it just doesn't make sense to me how that star is so bright now. Like, how is that star visible even after the sun comes up? Like, it's just insane to me that all of these noticeable changes are going on. And I have a theory as how to explain this, but like, it comes off as crazy to a lot of people because they can't comprehend why I would go here with it. And it just appears to me that something changed in 2008, 2009. There was a quickening of some sort, and the world accelerated into a different direction. Not only morally, but physically. There's just noticeable changes that don't make a whole lot of sense to me. And there has to be an explanation for this, as much as I might not want there to be. There has to be. And it's scary to think about because, like, right, me and you don't have control over it. But if you remember these differences, you're different than a lot of people, because there's only a certain percentage of people that remember stuff like the Ford symbol being different, or the changes in the sky, or just like even the lunar cycle's changed. Like, everybody remembers the lunar cycle being 28.5 days, and that's why we have February, which alternates between 28 and 29 days every 4 years in order to make up for that slight difference, to account for our calendar, to put everything back into sync. And like, women know this, even though they don't know if they don't know they know it, but they know it because their periods sync up to the lunar cycle, which has always been 28 days, but it's changed. There's 13 zodiac signs now for the same reason, because the lunar cycle is actually 30 days now, which makes absolutely no sense. Why do we have February? Well, what is February there for? If that's the case, like, do the math. We shouldn't have that happening if The lunar cycle is 30 days. So I just wanted to point this kind of stuff out to you guys. Like in my previous video when I talked about NPCs, obviously you guys understand, I believe, like obviously there's some sort of simulation going on, right? But why? Now that's a question we're never going to know, and we can sit here and ponder as to why it's happening all day long, but we're never going to know, right? The real question you have to ask yourself is, how do you come out on top in this situation? Because it's hard to grasp, like, and a lot of people are going to lose their shit when they realize that it's happening. And I think more and more people are going to realize that it's happening, whether they want to or not. The question is, are you going to be able to mentally adapt to it? Because it could be the ruin of you if you're not able to. And hold on to the truth that you know to be true. There's certain things that you're going to remember that you know are true even though they've changed. The key is to not let society convince you you're crazy. This shift happened for a reason. And the fact that it happened right around the Mayan calendar telling us there was going to be some sort of change in our reality, like, that's not a coincidence. There's just no way that it's a coincidence. There's too many correlations. I want people to realize that, like, if you're watching this video, chances are you've been affected by this, because otherwise, why would I be put in your life? There's no reason. You're only going to watch this because you were meant to. Like, I'm not important, man. No more important than you. Like, my opinion isn't genius by any means. I'm just an average guy living a simplistic life, and that's what I want. I want to be a simpleton because the only truth you're ever going to know is that you're experiencing something, right? So why not look at it as a game where you're here anyway, right? You're going to experience whatever you're going to experience. The best you can do is to manipulate the situations you're in to make you happy or make you feel like you're coming out on top. And that's all you can hope for. And I want you to know that most of the people you interact with are put before you to challenge you. I'm a firm believer that everything placed before us, we chose to come here for one reason or another, whether it's a carnival ride, which I don't think is likely. I think that this is some sort of punishment, to be honest with you. Or it's a way out of adolescence for people that weren't able to progress as quick as others. Either that, or it's a way to weed out what type of soul you are based on what decisions you make. Like, don't get me wrong, you interact with other real souls every single day, but there's far fewer of them than you think. The average person standing behind the counter at the grocery store, I don't think they're the same as you and me. I don't. And I know this just based on, I get a feeling from them now. It sounds weird, you don't have to believe it, but I've always had the ability to read people, like, and know whether or not they're going to bring me a benefit or they're going to harm my situation. And it took a long time for me to realize that's what that feeling was, but I've always had it. So you just have to realize, right, your choices matter more than you think. A lot more than you think. Everything, every little minute choice you make matters more than you think. Just me spending an extra 4 minutes not getting out of this car and talking to you affected my entire day. And that's the way you have to plan things out. Humans think too short term. And that's why we're losing the battle against the system we're in, because we seek instant gratification while the system's thinking 1,000 years ahead of time. And we just have to change our mind state and realize we can manipulate that system if we realize that this thing's bigger than us. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I appreciate the interaction in the last video. That comment really made me think quite a bit, so thank you. I hope you're watching this one. If you are, shoot me another comment, man. I'd appreciate it. If you have a suggestion for a topic, leave it and I'll do it. Other than that, I want to say God bless you and have a nice day, man. That's all I can ask for is that you guys keep listening, and yeah, that's it. Have a good one.